We'll just go with the flow. But
Okay.
yeah,
What
thank
are
you
we
for
doing?
jumping on so much, and taking the time out of your day to actually be here. I know that you're a bit, you don't necessarily like it, but I think it's good. And obviously, we've worked together for quite a while now.
Yes.
How long is it now? Nearly 7, 8 months, I think,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Literally since we met, like a
Yeah,
week
well,
after.
no, I think we first met in August or June, August time.
Yeah, it might have been
But,
June actually, June or July.
but when we first kind of were really looking to do business together, that was in August.
Yeah.
And we went to go view those flats in Harrogate, which we now have. So,
Yes.
and they're actually going quite well. So that's good. But I would like to know a little bit about, before we talk about business and what we've done in property, I'd like to know a little bit about you actually. Because even though we've spent a lot of time together,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I know your whole kind of like backstory, childhood. Like, what was that like when you kind of like, where did you grow up? How did you grow up? That kind of stuff.
It's pretty boring, really, to be honest. I grew up in a lovely house with a lovely family, in Hemel still.
Yeah.
Um, with my sister as well, so just the two of us, mum, dad. Very standard 2.4 children type thing.
2.4 children. What's the 2.4 mean?
You know, like 2.4 children, as in like two children, two adults, but the adults are kind of the children as well.
Oh, okay. No, I think like standard nuclear family, like you have 4 adults or 4 adults, 2 kids, 2 adults, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah. Did you not ever used to watch the program 2.4 Children? It was a
I
comedy.
think I'm probably too
Too
young.
young.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably too young to have done that. But
Oh,
like, so when you were kind of growing up, what were your main interests and hobbies? Do you think there was certain things that you kind of did? Because obviously, you now do property, and you and Liam have both got your own business. Do you now think that there were certain things that you did back then that would kind of like
um,
looking back, you'd go, actually, yeah, that kind of makes sense to where I am now.
I don't think it was anything that I particularly did, but I'm dyslexic, and I
Yeah.
find it really like it wasn't really diagnosed when I was a kid though, back in school, and I think probably I have something else as well. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I always found it really difficult at school, and I kind of then always kind of went my own way, if that makes sense, because I didn't understand a lot of things that were said and things like that. So I kind of was always really independent.
Yeah.
And my dad has always been an entrepreneur as well. Like he's
Yeah.
always had his own businesses. So I suppose it was kind of the norm in some way for me to
Yeah.
be out on my own. But then also I've never really wanted. I always knew as well when I was younger. I never really wanted like a standard job or a standard life, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose I went to school because I had to. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I did okay, like with my results and stuff.
Yeah.
Never wanted to go to university or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I went into a estate agency,
Yeah.
and then I guess I found my love for property. But although saying that, when I was 16, I moved out of my parents'
That's
house.
quite a young age to.
Yeah, it was really young, but again, I've always wanted to be sort of independent on my own sort of thing. Then I went into a estate agency, really found a love for property, and I bought my first house when I was 19. Well, actually, it was a flat when I was 19. When 100% mortgages were a thing. Actually, it was about 105% I got on my first mortgage.
So you got a loan from the bank to buy a house or flat.
and fit like the
And-
kitchen and everything like that as well.
Wow. Different
Um,
times we live in now, anyway.
I know, yeah. But that was my first like real step onto the property ladder, I suppose, an interest in property. And then I still didn't really feel satisfied. So then I rented that flat out,
Yeah.
and I went travelling.
Yeah.
So I went travelling for a year, just like the standard kind of, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, that sort of route. Had a bit of an accident when I was out there, surfing accident.
Yeah.
And then, so I come home a bit earlier. And then I guess really I've just jumped from doing different things like dog walking, cleaning, and running looms businesses, stuff like that.
And so going all the way back to, because you've gone through a whole speed run of like where you're at now. Going all the way back, what would you say like your school experience was like? Did you was it one where you didn't feel like you fit in, or was it one where you had loads of friends? Like what what was your whole school experience, and what did you take from that?
I had a lot of friends, but I hated school. Absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't think of anything. Every time I go past the school, I get like PTSD. Go past. I had lots of friends I grew up with, and lots of friends that I'm still friends with now in school. But it was just the academic side, and I also didn't like being told what to do.
No, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I hated that. And I think I just was made to feel a bit silly, like sometimes, because I couldn't put things on paper.
Yeah.
I remember I was in like the bottom set of English, and then there was like 5 of us in this one class. But actually I came out with B's for English.
Yeah, see, that's quite interesting, because having known you, you are actually, like, you're quite an articulate person.
Oh,
like maybe I guess, I've never really noticed it through text, but also my spelling and grammar is also awful. So, but like, so I wouldn't necessarily pick up on that things, but like the way you articulate yourself through speech anyway is not.
So? Yeah. See, I don't like a lot of my problems are speech wise. Like there's loads of words that I just cannot say, I cannot pronounce, and I'll get the word wrong, or I don't think of what I want to say. So like, or I know what I want to say, but I can't get the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the time I actually sort of rewired myself, I suppose, to think, oh, how else can I say this differently? And then I kind of go around about it that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. But then, would you say that then that is what kind of, almost that feeling of like being in the bottom set and not that kind of spurred you on to almost try different things?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like even with...
Sorry, but it's just like, because like, I think like you almost get labelled as dumb if you're in the bottom set, but actually like you're not a dumb person at all.
No, I wasn't, and I knew that.
Yeah.
And I think I was quite comfortable knowing that I was all right. Like, does that make sense? Like, I knew in my head that I was fine, but it did make me feel really silly. But I had the confidence in myself, I think.
Yes, you had the confidence in yourself to believe that actually I'm not dumb, even if you were kind of made to feel that way or labelled that way in a way.
Exactly.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your dad's kind of businesses. What did he do, and did you kind of get a bit of a sniff of that while you were young? Like, what did he do within his work?
So he started out in the sport world, I suppose you would say. He used to be a pole vaulter. It's very, athletic, and he used to work in sport shops for a long time, and then he got into sort of designing clothes. And
how do you make that jump? Was it like designing sportswear, or like how do you make that jump from? Yeah,
sportswear.
Okay.
And I think he just wanted to go out on his own and make his own way. And he joined up with, I suppose, some business partners, friends. I'm not sure what they were, and created clothing brands, lots of different clothing brands. And then he kind of worked his way up, I suppose, to not designing the clothes. He was kind of, I can't remember what you would call it, but he was middleman between designers and making the products.
Okay.
So he would help design, but then he'd also find the production teams.
Right.
So he used to do that for Superdry for a long time, Quicksilver, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now he's back doing sports, so he's actually a ski instructor now. Now he's retired.
Yeah. Where does he do that?
Down in Hemel.
Oh, okay. At the Snowdome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you meant like a broad ski instructor living the life.
Well, no, he has. He was in somewhere last week for 2 weeks.
Somewhere. Which
Somewhere.
country?
I can't remember where he went, but yeah, he went. He's been away 3 times now. With
Okay.
doing, you know, when
That's
he
not
like
bad.
teaches students over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
not
he's got a
bad
new
at all.
lease of life.
And then, so what was it that spurred you on to move out at 16? Because like, I think a lot of people in this time, especially like at 16 years old, I couldn't even fathom moving out. Like probably I was not life experienced enough, but also like money wise. So how did you kind of pull that together?
I literally just went straight into work. So I went. I started work. I think we were allowed to work at 14 back then. So I started in Primark, and was there, I think, until I was 15, and then started at the estate agency, and that was it. And then I continued that until I think I was 19, bought the flat, and then went travelling.
So what were you doing as an estate agent then? Were you kind of lettings, sales?
I used to do a bit of everything really. I remember I used to do all the particulars and draw all the floor plans. I used to go out and view all the properties. But I wasn't a negotiator.
Okay. And then what was it then that then you made the switch? So you bought your first property. Did you say because with the mortgage you were able to do up the flat?
Yeah.
So you almost did your first BRR at what, 19?
Yeah, I suppose I did. Yeah, that's true
That's quite
actually. Yeah.
impressive. Did you remortgage it afterwards, or did you just kind of?
No, I didn't. I didn't know how to do that back then. So but then I rented it out when I went travelling, and then when I came back, I'd obviously done all the work to it as well. I sold it. I think I was 21. And I think I made 60,000 on it then.
That's not bad for your first BRR, and you didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I think that's a lot of people that happens to quite a few people. Is they kind of buy a house, they kind of like do it up, and don't realise that actually like that's a whole business model within itself that people do.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah. I didn't realise that at all.
And then with your travelling, because I know a little bit about this, so you travelled around and then you had this massive accident. What happened there, and how do you think that kind of like shaped you going forward?
I definitely think it put me back a lot. Because it wasn't really that serious.
But give a bit of context about what actually happened and how it happened.
So I was at a surf camp in Australia, and we were just surfing, I suppose, for the day. And I think I got a bit ahead of myself and swam out to get this wave, and realised that actually I was in front of it and not behind it, and it sort of smashed on the front of my surfboard and took me nosedive to the floor. And I don't really remember much apart from being escorted on a surfboard back to land. And I just remember I couldn't lift my head up because it just hurt so much. And then I remember sort of coming to on the beach, and then the only other thing I remember is someone saying, "Oh my God, look at her eyes, look at my eyes," and I think they were like going in and out, if that makes sense, like fluttering almost. And then the next thing I remember is that it was getting dark, and it was winter in Australia, so it wasn't hot. So I think it was an early evening, and they had to get the ambulance in. So they got a call from the ambulance service basically saying they couldn't make it down to the surf camp because it was too remote. So they had to get a helicopter. And by this time, as I say, it was dark. So they set off the flares. I remember the flares going up to show the helicopter where to land. Wow. And then I just remember trying to get up from a stretcher. And this lady saying to me, you can't get up because, you really seriously hurt yourself. I think she said, you might not be able to walk if you get up again. And then I sort of stayed still, went in a helicopter ride, 8 hours away from where I was. And the rest is a blur, if I'm honest with you, until I discharged myself from the hospital. And I don't know why I did that. Like, I don't know why I did that. But I think I just didn't want to be there anymore, and I wanted to get back to where I was. And obviously I'd come from the beach, they'd cut off my wetsuit, so I had no clothes, no shoes, no underwear, no money, no phone.
Nothing.
And I remember discharging myself, and they wouldn't let me like go, but they couldn't stop me from discharging myself, so they put me up in a relative hospital, which was literally next to the hospital, to stay there for a few days while I got myself sorted. And so I went into there, and then there were some really lovely people, like one older gentleman gave me some money, another lady gave me some slippers, and the hospital gave me some, like blue scrubs.
Yeah.
Right? So I've got my hair out here because it was like all, bushy from the water, a neck brace on, and a pair of scrubs, an old lady's new pair of pants, and some pair of slippers.
Yeah.
And then the people from the surf camp, which I was, basically organised a bus to come and collect me and take me back to where I was going. And it was like a Australian on and off Oz bus or something like that. I can't remember. Oz experience bus. And so it's like full of travellers. And so I remember getting on this bus, and everyone was like, "Oh, you must be Jenna," and I was like, have I got concussion? Do I know you?
And famous. That's what
literally, the whole story had gone around everywhere. That I'd been helicoptered to this hospital, and they were coming to pick me up and everything. And then after that, I tried to sort of carry on doing a bit of travelling and stuff, but I was just in a lot of pain. And that's when it really set me back. Is when I come home and kind of had to start again with rehabilitation and stuff like that.
And what was that rehabilitation process like?
It was really hard. I didn't know. They knew that I had like whiplash, which was really bad, because they sort of scanned my neck and my head, because I had like a cuts on my head. But I didn't know until 2 years ago that I'd actually broken my back.
Oh. And you can still walk, so that's kind of like, because that's quite, well, obviously I know you can still walk, but that's like, that's quite it's a very serious injury to have. And what was that rehabilitation process like? Like, did you have to do lots of physio and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I went to lots of physios, chiropractors. They were the main ones, really. I remember I started a new job when I got back, being a recruitment consultant.
Okay.
And I just was in so much pain all the time. I just couldn't even do that, so I had to quit and then like really rest and do this rehabilitation to actually be able to get a job.
Yeah. And what was that like? How did that impact you mentally, going from like living this high life in Australia, and before that like estate agent on your feet, doing this stuff with the house, and then just
I was really down. I was really down when I got back. I think not only was I obviously hurt and in pain, but I really missed that life that I had, and the life that I wanted to create when I was out there. So it was really hard. Like anyone will tell you that goes travelling, it's really hard to come back anyway into a normal life, and like get into, I don't know, normal habits, I suppose. But it was extra hard. I was really, really down at that point.
And what was it that kind of got you back into normality?
It's a very good question.
Just speak up slightly.
That was a very good question, but I honestly can't remember what it was. I think it was like quite a traumatic time, and I kind of like don't really remember too much about it now. So I honestly couldn't answer that question. I don't know. And
so when you kind of, let's say, got back into that phase of normality, what was your next journey that you kind of went on after that, and the next party to?
My next journey, I suppose, was meeting Liam again, my husband. So we went to school together. Secondary school. So he was a year older than me, but we met each other. Well, I was in year 7, so I started school, and he was there in year 8. and we actually were like childhood sweethearts back then.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I met him. In fact, this is what it was. So I had been travelling,
Yeah.
and he actually lost his mum and went to Ibiza for a year and kind of worked out there.
Yeah.
And then I went to Tesco's like late one night to like get some lunch or something, and he was there and come over and literally just asked me out on the spot. And I was like,
That's a nice compliment. That's a nice compliment.
but yeah, he was a bit worse for wear, obviously living in Ibiza for a year. So I was kind of a bit like, don't really think so. But we can go on a friend date.
A friend date.
A friend date. Yeah, and then I think that's probably what got me back on my feet. Meeting Liam, and then we bought a house together.
Yeah.
Which was my next BRR project, which I didn't know about either, really.
Okay. And what were you doing for work at the time that allowed you to save up kind of, I'm assuming you kind of did the traditional deposit, that kind of stuff. So how did you save up that money?
Yeah, so I had some money from the flat that I sold.
Yeah.
And I was working in the clothing industry as a account manager for quite a long time, actually. I really liked that job. It was really good. I was able to save up the money because I was I was renting. No, I was renting for a long time, actually, after I sold the flat. And then I went to live with my nan, and I saved up money there.
Okay. And then you and Liam kind of went in together to buy your first house, but you did that again unknowingly as a BRR. So how did you do that?
So we bought it it was a repossession house.
Okay.
So
did you, just out of interest, did you buy it on auction then, or did you buy it just
No,
through an
I
estate
didn't buy it
agent?
on auction. I just bought it through the estate agents. And I remember at the time, like, there was a massive bidding war for this house because it was such a bargain. And I knew I wanted a house. Like, I didn't want a flat anymore. I wanted this house.
Yeah.
And so I basically just did everything I could to get this house. And I think I borrowed some money off my mum just to like get it over the line. I think we paid like £3,000 extra or something like that.
Okay.
It wasn't a lot, but like, well, I suppose it wasn't a lot really.
And how much did you buy the first house for then?
171,000.
Okay. That's not like, I don't know what the average prices in Hemels are now. I assume a lot cheaper, but still like not an insignificant amount of money.
No, they are. So, would you like to know how much it is? I sold it for.
Well, yeah, it would be good to just go through the whole process. So how did you buy it, do the refurb, and then
so I bought it with a standard mortgage and put down, I think maybe it was like 10% deposit back then. And then, then me and Liam set to work on it, really. And we didn't have any children then, and we had like painting parties and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember we had this one painting party that we threw, which was basically to get the paint off the walls, because there was this one room in the house where they'd painted the room with brown gloss.
Right, okay.
And literally, we had to use a wallpaper steamer to make it kind of gluey, and then peel it off.
Right.
Like, it was crazy, and then it was just the most disgusting house that you've ever seen. A palm tree in the back garden, which was like going into the foundations.
Right.
Like a real mess it was. But yeah, and it didn't really take us too long really to get it up and running. Probably, I'd say about 6 months with working as well.
Yeah. So you did that while working jobs at the time as well. And
Yeah.
then how did you then, I like how you framed it as a painting party. So you managed to convince friends and family to come round to basically do work on your house for free.
Yes, and we
Just
supplied the drink.
Yeah, just by framing them as like, oh, we'll get drunk while we do it.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, I think that's definitely a lesson to be had about. That's a sales technique within itself. It's just how you frame things to even friends or family in that case. So.
Yeah, no, it was good. I remember it being summertime as well when we did it. Because by the end of the night, no one was inside doing the painting. Everyone was just outside. Fair
enough. Okay. So that was how you spent your weekends for a couple of months. Yeah. And then, so what did you, if you can remember, so you bought it for 176,
No, 171.
171, sorry. You bought it for 171. How much did you spend on it? And how much did you sell it for?
So we spent about 20,000 on it.
Okay.
And then, but then a year or two later, we did an extension on it.
Okay.
And then we redid the bathroom again. So all in all, I think we spent about 45,000.
Okay.
And we sold it for 425.
So how much is that in profit? That's...
It was like 200 grand.
Yeah, almost 200 grand profit.
Yeah, I think it was actually 240,000 or something like that we had left.
That's nuts. That's very impressive. Was that just during the period where the house prices were going just insane?
Yeah, because we bought it in the recession and then...
Okay, so you bought it in... What years did you buy it? 2000 and...
Is it 12? No, 2000. So, is it 2020? No.
2020 was not that long ago.
No, that's not right. So, Johnny was born in 2012, right?
Yeah.
So then we must have bought it a year before that.
Okay.
So it's 2011.
2011, and then when did you sell it?
Was? We sold it about 5 years ago. So when was that?
Okay.
Is that right?
And then how did you, at the time, what were you doing for work, and when did you transition to work with Liam on his business, and what does he do for his business as well?
So Liam was a tiler.
Yeah.
When I met him, well, he just got back from Ibiza, like I said.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't really doing anything, to be fair, but he trained as a tiler. And so I helped him create a brand. I think my dad done all the branding for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, get his life back on track really. And then I started doing all the admin, accounts, invoicing. I used to do the sales as well for it, and the marketing. And then he used to go out and do it.
So you ran basically the whole back end of the business and front end. You just didn't do the service.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Basically.
And then, so basically a year after we bought that house, I fell pregnant with Johnny. So I didn't work anymore after that. So we were quite fortunate to, I didn't have to go to work. I could look after Johnny. But then I can't remember what year it was, I think 7 years or 8 years ago, he he basically got assaulted outside a nightclub.
Yes.
And he had a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
Where he almost lost his life. And then we had really tough times because he couldn't go to work.
Yeah. So you'd gone from this position of having almost, I wouldn't say an abundance, but you were in this position where you didn't have to work. Liam's business was going really well. You just had your first child, and then you suddenly, life had flipped around on its head, and, because he was his own employee, there was no insurances, nothing. So your whole income just disappeared like that in the space of one night, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And what would you, as a family, what was that like to go through? How did you kind of get through that?
Just with friends and family, really. If it wasn't for them, then we wouldn't have done, I don't think. So he went out for one night with his friends, and then he came back home, and I found him in the morning on the sofa, and I just basically couldn't wake him up, and eventually got him to wake up, but he couldn't open his eyes and things like that. So then my sister-in-law took him to hospital, and they actually sent him away. They were like, it was just a bad hangover. And then, so he came home, and then I think it was the day afterwards he got really ill. And then I took him back and said, basically it's not right. And they were kind of like, well, we'll just do a scan just in case, because I was really insistent.
Yeah.
And then so we walked up to the MRI department, and the MRI guy radiographer. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure entirely, to be honest.
He was having a go at these nurses, saying, "Oh, there better not be any bleeds because you've broken protocol just walking him up here." Anyway, so Liam went in, and I was waiting outside, and then so the kind of MRI machine was here, and then the radiographer was here, and I was just waiting outside, and I could hear him. He went, "Oh!" like that, and I was like, "Ooh, what?" And then basically, I don't know what, intercom or whatever, called someone, and he was like, "This guy's got 2 bleeds on his brain, you better come up here now," or whatever it was like.
Yeah. Like suddenly it became really, really serious.
Yeah, it came really, and I remember I was on my phone to my friend, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think they've just said that he's got like bleeds on his brain."
Yeah.
And anyway, so the whole team just came crashing up, and basically took him down to resus. Where they were deciding whether he was going to have surgery or not. But as it turned out, the place he had the bleed, the main one, you couldn't operate on.
Right.
So anyway, he spent some time in hospital, and at that time, so it was just me and Johnny at home when he was in hospital, and all my friends rallied around. Obviously, my mum, a few friends come to hospital with us. And then my friend, I think I was really upset actually, and I couldn't really deal with the situation with it. I just wanted to kind of be alone, and I remember my friend saying that she'd tell all our other friends, that makes sense, as to what had happened. And then I think it was just a bit of a blur after that, to be honest with you. I don't know how we got through it, we just did.
What was that process like? Because like I've never had a brain injury. I can't imagine a lot of people have. Like, how is that? Like, 2 things. How did he recover from it, and how did you go back to like building up the business and getting him working again?
Yeah. So he had. So with brain injuries, it's like those different things could happen. Like it can damage like any little bit of. You don't have a personality and organisation skills, and and also obviously physical. Luckily, he didn't have anything physical wrong with him, but it was just mentally. So he really struggled with the light, loud noises. Like that was for a really long time, and that was really hard. I remember because Johnny was really young, and him and Johnny were so close, and then all of a sudden Liam couldn't bear the noise, and that was really difficult. And then we went through a stage where he was really angry. Like, so there's loads of different processes that you go through, apparently.
Yeah.
And anger can be one with the traumatic brain injury. Yeah, right. So we went through like this really angry stage, which was really hard. Yeah. And then basically, like, we went through lots of different stages, like lots of different emotions, as well as the actual, what the injury was doing.
Yeah.
And the way they explained it to me, the doctors, is that part of his brain was dead, basically, and his brain had to rewire of how to do things, and how to react to things and process things. Right. So it took about 12 months for him to really kind of get back to kind of like a stable condition, or that, just be kind of semi-normal. And then after that, he really struggled with anxiety and memory problems, like doing stuff for himself, really, which sounds really silly, but everything was like a lot. But we had a really good financial advisor, and they said, once they'd found out what happened, said, listen, this is what you have life insurance for. And I was like, well, he didn't die. And they said, no, but you can claim on your life insurance for serious injuries. So he put that through anyway, and it came back as like a life-threatening injury. So I think we got a payout of like 20 grand or something like that. So it wasn't like a lot, but it meant that we could like pay for some of our bills, basically. Yeah,
because that was my next question, was like, how did you get through that?
Well, it didn't last long, it's a lot of money down here to live. So I went back to work. I think I went to work at MRI department. I did that in the evenings because Johnny still wasn't at school then. So I did that in the evenings for a couple of years, and he went back to work obviously, and he started working for someone because that was a subcontractor, which was a lot easier for him. And they were really nice, and like again, you know, we've got so many friends in the industry that we grew up with, and so the M1, if it wasn't for them, like we would have really been a lot more screwed than what we were really.
Because so really, the network of friends, family, and
100%.
basically having people in your industry is kind of what got you through essentially.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then once we all realised that we needed to do something to enable us to not live day by day, because you know you never know what's going to happen, and you know I think that taught us to live life the way you want to, but you know also we don't want to be in that situation again where we're struggling for money or if something happens to us then we've got nothing.
I mean I think that's like it makes sense, like a lot of, like if you have a life-threatening or a life-changing experience like that, to sit down and be like, okay, what's actually important to me at the end of the day, because like a lot of people, like credit to you, like a lot of people may even just struggle to get through that on a marriage front at that point, where
it
like
was hard.
like on a marriage point of like having a young child, almost having to also look after your husband at the same time because he's got a life-threatening brain injury, like that's a very tough period. So then to get through that and to be like, oh, I've got to go work in the evenings, like I think that shows real grit and determination, which is probably why you've been able to like get to where you are now, because you have to put in that grit and determination to kind of get there.
You just got to keep going, I think that's the key, is just take a breather sometimes, but you just got to keep going.
So what was it like when you kind of had that realization after like having that, you know, Liam having the bit, what was it that you actively pursued to change in your day-to-day life?
Well, we knew we wanted to change, but we didn't know how. And for a little while we thought maybe, and Liam was really unhappy as well with what he was doing. Like I think it changed him a lot, and he didn't want to do the work he was doing anymore. And physically, he's with his brain injury, gets really tired, so he physically was finding it really hard. So we actually took some equity out in our house. I haven't told you the story before, I don't think. And we bought a camper van, and we bought it as a cocktail bar. So basically, like Liam and me like went to lots of different events and had the cocktail bar, and we were the bar men, women, serving cocktails out of this bar. He really enjoyed it. I wasn't that keen on it myself, especially like with, you know, young children. Like it wasn't really for me. But we soon realised as well that really it was really unsociable hours that you'd have to work. So, you know, like all the weekends, like we used to go to lots of events at the weekends and parties and weddings at night and things like that. And it actually didn't make the difference that we thought it would for us. And so then we ended up selling it. And then we both really wanted to do property. And when was the time where the market crashed a little bit again? I can't remember when that was. Oh,
I
COVID.
think 2020, COVID period.
Yeah, COVID. So just before that, we were like, right, well, we're going to do property. And anyway, that's when we bought this house and released all the money from the other house.
Okay.
And then we had a big...
I'm just going to close my windows. 1 second. Because someone's... They're just being loud outside. It's really annoying.
I couldn't hear.
Anyway, so you released the equity out of your first house and bought the house that you currently live in.
Yeah, no, so we didn't really. Yes, yeah. When we sold it, we basically So then.
So you sold the previous house. To buy this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we ended up with about 250k, I think it was. And yeah, that's when we started our journey, basically, that we're on now.
Okay. And so how did you get that 250k? Was that from selling the previous house? So did you buy this house cheaper then, and that's how you kind of made that difference?
No, we got a higher mortgage on this house.
Okay, right. So you released the equity, bought a new house, and then...
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
And then that's when you kind of jumped into the property world.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
And what would you know, what was that first step for you? How did you even start doing that? Like, what did you want to...
So I started... we started looking around about what to do, and things. Well, basically, Samuel Lee's come up on my Instagram pretty much. But when you research everything, then it all comes up. Yeah. And I thought, oh well, I'll go to his crash course and see what it's about, because I wanted to learn the best way to do things. I didn't just want to like jump in and get stung, really. Yeah. So I wanted to learn the best way to do it. And then I met you, and I wanted to build up some cash flow as well. So that was my main goal first, build up cash flow, so then Liam can completely stop his work. Yeah. So then we've got some income coming in to then for him to be able to then renovate the houses with me. Yeah. So
how have you... What was your first step then? When you realised you started in the property world, you were like, okay, I've got a pot of cash sitting there to invest, and you're like, okay, I need cash flow. Then obviously, coincidentally, we ended up meeting each other. Yeah. And then obviously, what was that journey from there when we started working together?
So, I mean, as you know, I've told you before, you know, like I saw you on stage, wanted to work with you and what you were doing with the Airbnb service accommodation side of things. And I always knew that I wouldn't have the time, basically, to do that myself. But I know that there's really high returns, obviously, in it. When we spoke, I knew I wanted to work with you. Well, 80% I knew I wanted to work with you, and then once we had spoken after that, then when you came to me with the deal, the first deal we had in Harrogate, I kind of obviously we were always a bit dubious to do things, but like I said before, you just got to keep going and keep pushing. Sometimes I just jump right in with 2 feet. Sometimes I'm just like, well, I'm doing it, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's what we did.
Yeah, but okay. So advice because a lot of people will be in kind of different situations. Either let's say they're an investor or someone who's looking to get into property. So let's say your situation, or they're someone on my side who is running a business, trying to get cash flow, trying to build that up. What would you say were elements or advice that you'd give to people if they're trying to, joint venture with someone or trying to actually attract people to work with at the end of the day?
From my side of things, I think I was looking for someone that had the same sort of values as me, and all the same values, and I don't know how to, but also was already credible. Is that right? That's a really hard thing to say, isn't it? And that is, I don't know whether that's the right thing to say or not, but it is, like you proved yourself. Yeah, you wanted someone there who had something behind them that they could kind of point to and say, like, look, it's not all just for show, or it's not all just what I'm saying. It's actually, here's the tangible evidence behind that. That's it. Yeah, I did want evidence. I did want some credibility. But like I said, also the values mean a lot. I wanted someone that was honest and that worked really hard, and I could see that you did that. Obviously, from everything. What am I trying to say? I could see you did it because you have already you already had everything in place. Like you already had the rent to rents, etc. Yeah. What's the word for that? You already had.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I think the yeah. I think to me, like what I would say is the values thing is super important. Is like the if we. I think we. You know, we're generally friends, and like if you connect on that level just beyond it being a business transaction, I think that's how you make really good actual partnerships that can last.
Yeah,
Instead of just being in the situation where I was immediately trying to sell you something or flog you something. Like it was just our first thing was just a conversation about like, hi, I'm Jenna, hi, I'm Joost, and we just had that conversation and we got along.
Yeah.
And I think that
both,
makes a big difference.
Realised our vision was the same as well. We both from our backgrounds, we both knew that we worked really hard, and we both had things sort of to show for our hard work. But I think also it's a gut feeling though. I don't know if anyone else gets them, but I always have like gut feelings about stuff.
Yeah, intuition is kind of how but
yeah. And I kind of always get a feeling with someone where I know or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm the kind of person where I'm never like 100% no, but usually with that not sure kind of thing puts me off. But yeah, in terms of someone looking for investors, I think it's just being honest, open, honest, open. I don't know. How can you say a nice human being?
No, I think that's a very good answer. I think like I would add on to that. I think it's when I was first starting out and kind of building that up. I think you have to be. A lot of people are unwilling to just give, whether that's in conversations, time, value that you can give to the investor, value you can give to the business partner, anything like that.
Yeah,
and I think
definitely.
like that's
if you've got
super
knowledge.
important. Yes, like if you can give knowledge to begin with and almost help educate them, understanding why potentially you could present a good opportunity or why potentially you could work together, I think that's a super valuable thing.
Yeah.
And even when you're trying to get your first deal, like someone has to, along that period of kind of you starting out, someone has to take a chance at you at some point. Someone has to take a chance on you. And people are always willing to take a chance on people, but it's maybe that you haven't convinced them enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you offer them something, whether it's by giving them so much knowledge and value to begin with, or, you know, trying to de-risk it from them as much as possible, for them as much as possible, by offering some sort of guarantee or whatever, that it kind of just pushes them over the edge to make that thing where they say like, actually, I want to take that risk, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I think that's what a lot of people lack, is they say like, well, I value my time at this, or I value myself at this, and that's great, but you're only necessarily as valuable as someone else is willing to pay.
Yeah.
So
no,
I think
it's really
you have
true.
to,
and I think
like, sometimes reassess actually where you think that you sit on that kind of value equation in a way.
Yeah, no, you are right. I definitely think you touched on like the value and the knowledge. Like I always look for that as well. You know, if people know what they're talking about and they know their area, and you know they've got what you need to offer something that they don't have.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what it boils down to, pretty much. And you know, you had that for me, and I had that for you. You know, like it's. Yeah,
it was a win-win scenario. So like, for the context of it all, we were looking at a block of 5 flats in Harrogate to do on a rent-to-rent basis. They ended up kind of, through developments and all that kind of stuff, ended up getting massively delayed. So we ended up in a position where we actually had this block of 5 flats in Harrogate, and then another opportunity came up in Leeds, which was a block of 9 flats, which was the first deal that we took on. But I remember I'd kind of been given this opportunity. I remember just ringing you up on the train, and I was like, Jenna, I know the 5 flats thing is kind of stalled, but I know it's a bit of a bigger jump, but we've got 9. Would you be interested in that? You know,
I was at the park.
Yeah, and then we just,
okay.
And that's how we kind of just, you know, we went from there, and that's how we took it. I think it was a very interesting experience, obviously, taking those flats on.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think it's the opportunities you've got to take. You've got to jump on all the opportunities that gets thrown at you sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're buffering a little bit. Wait 1 second.
Oh,
Let's see if you come back.
is it all right now?
But yeah, no. So we took on those. We ended up taking on those 9 flats, and then going from basically almost strangers in a way to basically spending what 2.5 weeks, all of us together in apartment buildings, literally sleeping there, and turning the whole thing from like an empty canvas into 9 wonderful Airbnbs. And I think like one of the things that I would say on that you've improved our levels in our own business, because you offer something that we didn't have before, which was like this staging and element design that I just never really considered or thought of, but now I see it as like absolutely crucial to any project that we were to do.
Yeah.
So even then, like, even if it wasn't monetary or me doing this or that, like that was another element of value. Like I don't think the flats that we have, which have performed very well, would have performed as well if I had just taken them on myself, or you know, you hadn't been involved in that project.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's again like where the skill set that we both have has been very complementary.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, and then also since then we took on another block of 5 flats, which was the original one that we were going to take on earlier, and that kind of came about through just time and waiting, and the landlords rang them back up, and we even put in an offer to begin with, and then they rejected it. I think we waited 2 months, a month, and then they came back to us, and we actually gave them an even lower offer.
Yeah.
So I think that's again a crucial lesson of like, you know, sometimes it's better to walk away and then come back to it later down the line. Yeah. But I know you can very much speak on that because of some of the BRR projects that you've now taken on and are doing at the moment. So I think it'd be great to kind of let people know about how that is a very crucial thing and how that's worked for you.
Yeah, so should I start with the one that I've done already, the first one?
Yeah, start with the first one, but then talk about the one where you put in the offer and left. And
okay, so the first the actual BRRR that I knew about I was doing, me and my husband, we brought a property that was really run down, and basically just built it up from there, knocked it back to the brick pretty much, and then started again. And we increased the value and refinanced it, and we have rented that one out as a buy-to-let. Which we were able to get about 45% return on investment on. Okay,
so talk a bit about the process of like, how did you actually go about finding that property first of all?
We went around to all our local estate agents basically and introduced ourselves, and introduced what we were doing in the area, and so see what they had there and then, which we didn't find straight away, and basically just kept calling and seeing what people had and having a chat. When going in, I think that going in the estate agents was the most crucial bit, because then obviously you can place the name, and you can do a lot more when you're face to face. And then one of the estate agents called us up with this particular deal, and which we brought. We actually negotiated a better offer as well while we were in the process of buying that one.
And how did you do that?
So we had the survey done, which kind of threw up most things that we knew were a problem. But then there were a couple more things which we thought, we're not quite sure whether we've got the budget for, basically. And I wanted to be really tight with the budget. I didn't want to go over. So basically I negotiated it down. So I asked for quite a lot off. They said no, and then it kind of went
what
back.
were the figures on what they were asking, what you offered, and then what discount you got on that?
So it went on the market for 400.
Yeah.
And then we got it at 350.
Okay.
And then after negotiation, we bought it for 330.
So that's nearly 20% discount on their initial price.
Yeah.
That's quite good.
Yeah, we were really pleased with it. We were really pleased.
Yeah.
And we have had it valued at 475 now. So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's a
So
lot
how
of-
much you? So again, through that process of doing that BRR, what are like when you've bought the house, you've exchanged, you've completed, then you go on to the actual refurb process. What are some of the key critical elements that you say are like, this is what determines a successful refurb, and that's how, and mistakes that you also maybe made along that process?
Yeah. I definitely think getting the budget right, the renovation costs, like that is the main thing that you've got to be careful of because it can easily spiral out of control. So we've, luckily, like for me and Liam's in the trade, all our friends are in the trade, and we've already done, without knowing, 3 BRRs for our own properties. So we kind of have an idea of how much things cost. So for us, we got most of it right, but I would say the surprising element is tools that you don't have sometimes to complete the job, especially if you're doing it yourself, and the price for wood.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's so surprising, because we're doing it all ourselves. Obviously, if you pay a contractor, that will be in their price. But just simple, you think, oh well, I'll rebuild that wall or I'll insulate this wall. But actually, and I know this because I actually built some walls. So the all the timber and everything just costs a lot of money. So now for everything, I always put a wood. Wood cost, which is ridiculous, an allowance for that, and then the actual design of the house, I think is like really crucial. I think you've got to think about who's going to be living there, like what type of house it is, and how people live these days, because most of the properties that we're working on, people haven't touched in
30
50,
years or
80 years, so people live a lot differently. So I think you just got to know who you're going to be selling it to or renting it to, or also your vision. So this is the mistake I think that I made on the first one, is my vision kept changing. So my end goal. So originally I was going to rent it to emergency housing. And then I've actually ended up doing it as a buy-to-let. And in the middle of that, I thought maybe I'll do it for service accommodation. So it changed quite a lot, and how you do up the house, like I said already, is relevant to what your end goal is and who's going to be living there. So that's where I failed. Well, didn't fail, but that's where my mistake.
I think failed is a harsh, but like what?
Yeah.
So what would you say? Did you say that you had one initial exit strategy?
Yes.
And then you just flip-flopped. I know the emergency housing contract that actually fell through on you. So that was initially like your exit strategy.
Yeah.
And then how did that impact the process of the design of the house, etc.?
Well, if I'm honest, it didn't really affect it too much on this property. Just because the way I was designing it was nice anyway. I think if you've got the vision, the design element of it, you can make very cheap things really nice. Makes sense. So I think that's where me and my husband come into our own, because we do things very cheaply but very nicely. If that makes sense. So it didn't really make too much difference for the project initially, like the bones of the property, I suppose. But because I was going to be doing it to emergency accommodation, I wasn't going to have to spend a lot of money on furniture and doing it up, as in if I was doing it with an SA, and that would have affected the overall figures. I can't remember what I was going to say for that. And also, if then you're renting, if you're doing emergency accommodation, if you're doing service accommodation, or you're renting it buy to let, all the compliances are all different as well.
Yes.
I mean, you know yourself, like HMO and buy-to-let, you have to have all the fire regulations done, you know, fire doors and this, that and the other, whereas service accommodation, you don't need that as much as other things need. I can't remember where I was.
On your kind of how the exit strategy, so how that was kind of impacted by the process and stuff like that.
Yes. So although it didn't impact the project, it impacted my mental process.
Yeah.
So from changing the strategy, I think that's where I lost like the vision of the exit strategy, because it was going to be the emergency accommodation. That's what I had in my head. I knew the figures, etc. Because that failed, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, should I do service accommodation, or oh, should I do a buy-to-let? And that's where I really struggled, and it took time. And like I think with the renovations that you do, the BRRs, you have to be really quick, because time is money. Like especially if you're buying it on bridging finance, which is a lot of money. You know, if you dilly-daddle for like 1 month, you know, it could cost you. It could be the difference between, you know, a deal working and a deal not working sometimes.
The
you know, if the
actually
if the budget is really tight. So I think that's where I made the mistake. I dilly-dallied too long, and then once I made the decision to do a buy-to-let, the reason why I did a buy-to-let is just because me and my husband have got so much going on, and we're managing our projects and doing our projects at the same time, plus everything else that's going on. We've got 2 small children, we've got a house to run, etc. I wanted it to be really easy for myself, and with the buy-to-let, I've got rent guarantee, all the insurances, and I can just literally just tick it off my box and leave it. It offered a really good return on investment, but it didn't come without its challenges again. So we put the house up for rent, and then within the first week we had about 3 offers, which we decided on someone, and then they didn't actually pass their referencing. So then we had to get someone else, which then took another week, and they didn't pass their referencing. And so I was really disheartened by this point, and then I thought, right, brilliant, I'll just put it back on for service accommodation, and then we got another offer for the property, and you know, finally that actually worked out. But just the whole like up and down of it is what really got to me, and like that.
And what would you say the learnings from that were, having been through that experience of essentially like you had one exit strategy and maybe it threw you off that didn't work out, and what would you say that, like, having done that experience once, and I know you've now going on to another project, what would you take from that and be like, okay, for the next one I would do that differently? I now do a plan A and a plan B, which I know obviously you used to have anyway, but I kind of thought to myself, the other project, I was like, oh, I'll be fine, I can't either do this or that or the other. Whereas this one, now, well, the other one that I brought is there's a clear strategy, and that's working really well. And then the one after that, I have put in place, an A and a B strategy, basically. But I've also given myself a deadline, basically, of when I always give myself a deadline anyway, but a deadline to choose A or B. And that makes sense. So you've then thought it through more, because essentially, like, I think, like, let's say you're doing a BRR to service accommodation, you kind of think, well, I'm just going to put it up for service accommodation, and you kind of think, well, I could do it as a buy-to-let or whatever, and so that was your kind of thinking, was like, well, it's just going to be emergency accommodation, and then actually you kind of made or you had the lesson in it that, like, when you came down to, like, you didn't have a thoroughly thought out plan B. You kind of thought like, oh, I could do this or that. There wasn't a thorough plan of like, actually, if plan A doesn't work, I have to go to plan B. And that's different.
100%, because, you know, like I said, you know, if you don't make that decision, you know, time is money. Like it really is.
And then what are your current project, and then what's the next one that you're working on at the minute?
So the current project is I brought a freehold property which has been split into 3 individual flats.
Yeah.
And I'm in the process of splitting the titles of each property and the leases, which are then being refinanced individually.
Okay. And what's the kind of numbers on that you're looking at the breakdown?
So going back to what we were saying before about sometimes walking away from a deal. So this is a deal actually that I walked away from about 6 months ago. I think it was that long ago. I walked away. I did lose a little bit of money. I think it was like a few £1,000s, but I thought it was better than, you know.
So why did you walk away from the deal? Why didn't it work?
Because I actually had it all fell down to when I had the property valued. So for the bridging finance that I was buying it on, they didn't value it as much as I originally thought. And I didn't want to leave any money in the deal. So I made a decision to walk away from it. And then they put it back on the market. But it was basically a probate sale, and they wanted to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And sort of the day they went back on the market, they could have come back to me and said, "Oh, actually, if you want to buy it, what would you buy it for?" And so I gave them the figure, and they accepted it, which was £75,000 less than the original price that I was buying it for.
Sorry, just go over that last bit again, because you lost connection.
Where did I get up to?
Basically saying like you pulled out, then they came back to you, put in this much for your...
Okay, so I pulled out of the deal, and it was a probate property, so they wanted to sell it, and it was the last in a portfolio. It was the last one they had, which had been going on quite a while, and because of the 3 flats, they had to get planning permission for them, etc. It was a bit of a long-winded process. So they basically said to me, "Well, what would you pay for it?" And I actually offered lower than what I got it for, but I got it for £75,000 less than what I bought it for.
Okay. And then now that's going to be a completely all money out deal once you...
Complete all money out deal, and hopefully a little bit more on the back end.
That's very good.
Yeah.
And that one is also going to just be a standard buy-to-let property as well, or 3.
Yeah, so I actually bought it with tenants in it. So I've done a bit of work on it, changed one of the bathrooms, given it a bit of decorating, painting and that sort of thing. And that's it.
That's very good.
Yeah,
and what's the timelines on that, from purchase to then having all your money back out again? How quick is that timeline?
Hoping for 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah. So it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've got another 4 to go.
That's very good. So how much would you buy it for, and then how much is it going to get revalued at?
So I bought it for 325.
Yeah.
And it's been hopefully speculated 480. Nice.
So what's that in terms of return on investment?
I think it's like 215%. I think I've got about £2,000 left in the deal.
Okay.
If it comes out more, which the 480 is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Conservative.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So you're hoping for at least an all money out deal.
Yes.
And then you said you've got one more project alongside having 14 rent-to-rent
I've got
flats.
2 more projects.
2 more projects.
Yeah.
And are those also both BRRs that you're going to be doing?
Yeah. One's kind of a little bit of a development, actually.
Okay.
In fact, both of them possibly could be. So we brought another property from auction, and so we've got to complete on that one within 4 weeks. So I've actually... Yeah. It's been really stressful because I actually need to complete on the one I'm currently doing. I wouldn't want to complete that one. I want that one to go through before this auction finishes.
Yeah, so you have to pay the auction.
Yeah. So that one, it's a BRR, so it needs renovating, and like a little extension on the back, and then we're completely redesigning the layout of it. But also in the garden, I've been talking to the council basically about buying a piece of land off of them, which is there, which then hopefully we create another dwelling on.
Right.
I think that will be like down the line. What we'll do is we'll do the renovation, refinance as it is, and then if we're able to buy the land, then I'll split the title then. That will be further down the line. And then we've got another property which I'm actually really excited for this one, and we're doing it with an investor, which is a friend of ours, who's seen what we've been doing, and this one again was a deal that I tried to get a few months ago, but they wouldn't sell it to me because they didn't want a developer buying it. Their deal fell through, so they come back to us, and even though we've got no money whatsoever, we still bought it or offered on it and got it accepted. But the hope is obviously once these 2 projects are done, then they'll be ready for the next one.
Well, I think again that's a very good lesson of like, I think a lot of times you get no the first time. So you kind of like, there's a very famous saying which is like go for no. So it's like if if it's rent to rent or BRRs or whatever, it's like most of the time the deal's not going to come through on the first time of asking, because what you're trying to do is either something that's not conventional, you're trying to offer below market value, whatever it is, you're not going to get, why would someone potentially want to do that with you? But it's the ones that fall through, or the ones who need to rent it quickly, or the ones who are in a bit of a precarious position, or whatever it is, that's where you having that follow-up process and being a name that are like, okay, well, we know we can go back to Jenna and Liam. That's actually how you get those better deals, I think. Like to talk about some of the work that we've done together, like the deal that we did in Harrogate, we got a 4-week grace period on, had lower rent than initially they had rejected us on in the first place, and we didn't pay a single pound as deposit. All because we had the leverage the second time around to be like, well, actually, we've now got this block of flats in Leeds, and we can say like, well, if you want to work with us, we can only do it on our terms. And it almost getting the first no gives you the power on the second time when they come back to you. Because you can be like, well, okay, but only now it's on my terms. Whereas when you do that initial outreach, it's a lot harder. I think so. And I think with this deal that they've come back to us we're now in a position again, because they've wasted 6 months of their time or however long it's been. We're in a position now where we're working really closely with the estate agents, and they're offering us a lot of advice, and they're coming out to it's a bit of a difficult one to explain, but basically the property is a really large character. It used to be a pub, so it was a pub, and then it was converted into a house, and it's massive. It's about 200 square metres, and we want to split it into 2 houses and convert the lofts. They're just giving us every bit of their time, basically. I think we've been up there about 5 times, since for about 2 weeks with everyone, architects, builders, investors, everything. And then they've got like their new homes team coming out to see it, and just silly things really. And but it all helps when they're going above and beyond to
100%
kind of get the deal over the line.
This another one that we bought, we literally haven't had access to it since we bought it. And I think that's the auction one where we don't have a relationship with the auction people we bought it from. We've got no leverage really in it at all, even though it's a really good deal. So they haven't let us go in and see the property since, so we can't get, our builders and everything in there, which will delay us. And this way, like working, like going back to you before, when you're building that personal relationship with people, not only does it serve you, for deals and everything, but the whole process is just going to be so much easier. And like you say, these little tiny things where they've let us go in there, you know, it's going to put us so far ahead when we actually get to the project in September.
Yeah, but I think that's also a general business thing, is like you're now going to want to work with that estate agent again because they've gone above and beyond in their service. So actually they're going to make more money off you in the roundabout way. They're going to make more money off you in the future. So it makes sense, but a lot of people don't want to go that extra effort or don't want to do that extra mile for their clients or whoever it is because they don't want to. But actually in the long run, and that's what's hard to see, it sometimes is like short-term pain or suffering or whatever actually outweighs the long-term benefit, far outweighs that, because they'll make more money off the back end than what they've spent in time doing these extra bits for you now.
Yeah, definitely.
And then being yourself again, actually a relatively large player in the service accommodation space, you may not even touch on that much. How has that experience been for you, and what would you kind of like, as a kind of note to round off, like what would you say your key takeaways are from that?
From service accommodation? Well,
from service accommodation and then your journey into property in general in the last year.
Sorry, I'm not really hearing you that well. Can you say it again?
I'm saying, so what are your kind of key takeaways and learnings that you've had from the service accommodation space and then also your property journey in the last year?
My key takeaways. I'm glad this was edited out. What are my key takeaways?
I can give you can have a bit of time to think about it.
Yeah, what are my key takeaways from...
Like lessons learned, or lessons that you would, you know, for the, let's say, one person who's made it this far, that they say, you know what would you say, like, that was super, to learn that or go through that was a super valuable experience, or I've learned that XYZ has been the one thing that has helped me build up, because, you know, you've achieved a lot in the last year that a lot of people won't have done.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of...
I think, I'm just trying to think, because there's so many, but I don't want to sound negative in any way. But I think the main takes from what I've been through over the last year is you've definitely got to take chances. And I think that's my number one. Like, I don't think, from a lot of people that I speak to, and from people I know, and like, you know, like family members, things like that, you know, no, scrap that bit. Is it okay to say to people I know? I don't know whether they'll take offence to it or not. Yeah, but I don't know if they'll take offence to it or not. Or
I doubt they're going to watch it. I'm not that famous. I don't think they're going to watch it.
I don't know, but a lot of people don't take a lot of chances or a lot of risks.
Yes.
And I think if you don't take them, you will just stand still. And sometimes they might come and bite you. But if you don't take that chance, you don't know. Like, you know, me and Liam, we've done loads of things that have turned around and just not been good. Like, you know, like the camper van, for instance. You know, like, that didn't work out, but we still gave it a go, and it didn't, you know, it wasn't the end of the world. But you have to take these chances. And, you know, like with the properties, you know, if we were too scared to do it, then we wouldn't have got to where we were.
Yeah.
So I definitely think taking chances and risks, you know, they do have to be calculated though. You know, you can't just jump in and willy-nilly and not know anything about it.
No,
you know,
I think
you do have to have education for number one. Like, ask as many people as you can, as many questions as you can.
Yeah.
There's always going to be things that come up. That's another thing that I've learned. Nothing is ever straightforward, especially like in the property world.
Yeah.
And you do have to be like quite thick-skinned, I think, sometimes, because, you know, you kind of just got to let things roll off you, because otherwise you just get snowed under with so much pressure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so take in chances and risks, do your education, You know, make sure you're what's the word I'm looking for here? No, I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is, there's so many things that come up that you kind of have to know all about the subject. Does that make sense? Is that education still?
You have to be. I think you have to be educated, but I think you also have to be adaptable.
Yes, that is the
I
word.
think
Adaptable.
I think like you have to understand what you're doing, but also
Yes.
understand that you're not going to know everything. And when
Yes.
like there's so many things that come up, and you know, whether it's a BRR or rent to rent or whatever, we've had plenty of things that haven't necessarily gone our way.
Yes.
You have to try and make the best out of that situation.
100%. That is exactly what I was trying to say.
And I think no, that's good. And I think like a lot of people, what the fall down can be is like things are very, very hard and things don't always go your way, and you very much have to sometimes just take what it is and adapt, and your stress tolerance to what you can deal with and what you can handle goes up as you do it more often.
Yeah.
Like things that could have that stressed you out on your first project, probably by the third one, it's not even like you're not even going to sniff at it. You're just be like, okay, fine, let's do this, sort that out. And that's, you build that up over time through that repetition and doing, and I think that's part of business and life.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like Liam has always said, and he's always said to the children as well, it's about their like doing their education and stuff. He'd say, "What is education?" And then the children will say, "Power." and it's so true though, because like you were saying, you know, when you build up this knowledge and you build up everything that you're doing all the time, it is power, because you know you can leverage it. You can do so much with the knowledge that you have, and especially when other people don't have it or have the experience. It's just. That's exactly what I was trying to say. You need to be adaptable. You need to learn everything you possibly can, like a sponge. Sort of take it all in.
Exactly. Yeah. No, well, I think that's a really good note to end on. So thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, I'm so sorry that I went to bits in the last bit. I couldn't get my words out. It was like the whole thing of like trying to think of what I'm saying and then getting it out of my mouth.
That's all right.